Hello guys, this is Time to Collision. We'll be continuing casting today the Greenhorn tournament with Alot. Alot, are you here?
Hello, hello.
Hello. So about Greenhorn tournament itself, it's a Greenhorn tournament formula. It means that new players, aka Greenhorns, in Bootcamp Discord, which you can find the link in recommendations, are playing against each other. This is designed to be kind of fair for newbies to not only check their skills but also prepare for bigger tournaments and like more official like SD League. So get familiar with ban system, picking system, a best of three, and so on. Also, me and Alod will try to do it less roasting, more informative. We know that you are new players, so you can use any tips we can give you, and we'll ensure with Alod to give you any tips we can. Hello, guys in the
Exactly.
chat.
Yes, and we will also try to be a bit more analytical in the way, so if the players then after see the stream either now live or at a later date, so we can, give them some input on how they can better improve for future games.
Exactly. So, who do we watching today? That's a good question. So we'll start from Freezer versus Crypto Chris. Then we go to Suntir versus 12 the 12th. Then we go to Slack versus Wunderkatze, Marcos versus Shervy, Jacob versus Spam, and we'll see what time it will be already and if Alot can cast more. Then probably we'll cast your game, Varanger, Squirrel. All right, and not to be stoned by Nilan Gonzo. Exactly. And no, that's not Long Island tea. That's normal tea this time. Like this is 11:30 in the morning, and I need to be sober at least for next 30 minutes. All right, Alot. Let's jump into the action. So first game is the Freezer versus Crypto Chris, and Freezer is playing as 15 infantry. This once deck brought by Nila, I remember in SD League semi-final against Sean, a bit forgotten in current patch.
Yeah, I think like it's a good division certainly, but I would say like it's interesting because I think it's quite difficult because it's a rifle division with that amazing Western air, but with Churchills, while they're good tanks, the downside is their horrid speed makes it so with this division you have to be able to look into the future a bit. You need to know where you need your Churchills before you need them. So to ensure that you put them there, and they will trek slowly but surely to the front line to make sure that they are at the front line at the position when you need them, where you need them. But for that, you need to know that a few minutes before, so they can actually be there in time.
Yeah, I tend to sometimes joke with people like Nila that when you play against 15 infantry, you know that for the first 2 minutes, enemy infantry has no fire support whatsoever because all the churches are so slow. Okay, maybe Daimler or Stackhounds will arrive at the time, but for sure not the tanks. Speaking of Air Force, Commonwealth Air Force is usually pretty good. This is not much different. Okay, Typhoons are not Tempest, but they still fulfill the same fighter bomber role, and they are good in it. Why? Because they have more than 500 kilometers per hour. They have medium resilience. He doesn't bring them in A though, as Vanguard. He brings them all in B. It means that maybe he wants to use them not for pushing and destroying defenses. He wants to use them for defending the ground he already gets. Also, what we can see from this player, Freezer, he brings 6 artillery pieces, 6 140s in B alot. This is pretty unusual and new for me.
Yes. So exactly, I would agree with. First, I think that the Typhoon one is that their availability curve is just so poor, which is it's very appropriate. But I think that you still can afford that just having exactly taking that 110 bomb with 2 bombs, that one in A, the one that you get more than one of in A. I think like 210 doesn't sound like much, but that will kill the AT gun or the MG gun generally. That is causing you problems. So this is an amazing card that you want to take generally, especially Vanguard, where these is great to where you're pushing. If there's that annoyance that is stopping your push, you can buy a plane and you can quickly get rid of that one thing, and then just keep your push rolling, so say. And as you say, yeah, I wouldn't recommend that much heavy artillery. I think I've said it last, but when it comes to 1v1, I think that even if you choose to go artillery heavy, which is a niche strategy to begin with, I think 2 is quite is normal, and 3 is a lot for even for a heavy artillery strategy, howitzer strategy. And here we see 3 in a deck. I wouldn't say really otherwise is something that plays artillery. Then you would more try to play a slower deck rather than Vanguard, I would say.
Not to mention that this division is kind of famous from the artillery, I mean off-map artillery it can bringing no card of this. I consider kind of mistake. Why? Because as Vanguard you can do so much use of these off maps. You can either fortify your position, like denying enemy pushes and buy you some time. You can destroy enemy defenses in area. Off maps, especially when you are Vanguard, will pay for themselves much quicker and give much more impact on the front line. Of course, in the long run, BL5 that they will be shooting maybe for 20 minutes if the game will be long enough, and maybe then they will pay for themselves. And you still need to have critical mass of them, and to bring six of 140 millimeter, it's like what, almost 800 points, when single off map can do the job in the area as good as the battery of those.
Exactly, the off map is great in this division, so it's a bit sad to miss the chance on that. Especially, like you say, when you're offensive, you just want to off-map away the enemy. And if you're leading and you still have off-maps available, it's a good way to, when your enemy tries to do a forced push, to just bog that push down to give you those extra minutes to win the game.
Also, in my opinion, in 1v1, due to not that giant map, where really like very heavy artillery shine, especially that accurate, like BL5 and 5 inches, when, for example, you play team game and you are shooting from one side of the map to the other. So this dispersion really matters. But if I would be playing 1v1, I think that 25 pounders are clearly superior. They have pretty good accuracy on the close range. They can do as a support IT gun if you really need them. Okay, they have smoke, but the BL5 also has smoke. They are cheaper, so if you can buy more of them, and it means that you can suppress AA, for example, even quicker. And you only need one card to bring 6 25 pounders when you need 3 cards to bring 6 BL5 and 5. And in my opinion, when it comes to suppressing with RT, usually it's number of game of numbers, and when you want to kill, sometimes it's matter of energy, so it's better to have more than better, in 1v1 at least.
Yes.
Alright, so let's take a look. He brings snipers in 2-inch carriers. Like, I love this choice. Like, to be honest, it's not meta choice, because usually you want snipers as fast as possible on frontline to deny any early probing, to spot early probings, and to take like annoying position where you outrange enemy by this 250 meters. But 2-inch mortar carriers, they are crazy with this rate of fire. They have 22 rate of fire. To be honest, this damage is no joke. I tested a few times, and you have 2 of those. You can kill King Tiger, of course, if it managed to go into 500 meters range. But still, it's funny to do.
No, I would actually even disagree that it's off meta. I think it's a very good choice for the snipers, and because, like you say, like you're getting in the same card now, you're getting like a DPS armored car pretty much, because this is like a SPW with very, very slow moving projectiles pretty much. And a bit cheaper as well. So I think it's very good. It's just like it adds on to, like you said, that the division is a bit slower. But if you really do like keep your division in the same pace, I don't think it's that much of a downside. I very much think that they can do a lot of good support.
Yeah, from other wheat choices, I see that he brought a lot of Churchills in support up, also AVRE. AVRE is really hard to use, especially for newer players. Most of the time, it dies before it reaches the position it can actually fire. We'll see what's the map and what's the opponent. But I'm really surprised he didn't bring crocodiles. Crocodiles for most of the decks, which doesn't have very heavy AT, are very good road blockers. And especially if you play against Shermans, Stuks, P4s, medium tanks in general, this is very cost-effective tank to fight against. 150mm of frontal armor, 90mm of penetration, rate of fire not great, but if something cannot really kill you with AP shells and doesn't switch to HE shells, because I don't know if newer player watching here, for example, Turans or basically any tank, the better is rate of fire, the greater rate of fire, the better. HE shells deal damage too. Slowly, they are of course reduced by armor number, where you actually hit. But if you have enough of tanks and enough rate of fire, you will kill any single entity in the game with HE only.
Yes, very much so. And going back, it's like you said, like if you go back to the whole picture again, is that I think it's a good deck. I would say just like you say, I would say the artillery place is the only one that is quite a bit off. Other than that, it's no big issues. Maybe I would say that there's too many 17 pounders compared to 6 pounders, because 6 pounders are just so amazing that you want a lot of them. Otherwise, it looks good, and I think the sniper is another good options where it shows that the player, he knows transports. He's has get some deeper knowledge on and utilizing those things in the game. But I do agree with what you said with the crocodile. To go back to that topic, is that there's the I don't remember which version of the Churchill that has 120 front armor. Usually, what I try to do with this division often is that you have the crocodile and one card of the heavier armored Churchill in the tank tab, and usually what you try to juggle is between those two in your two main phases. So you have the crocodile, maybe in A phase, being that tank, just to anchor your front line at, and then you have the other Churchill that you see now on stream being the one in the other part of the game. So you have those like two cards of heavy armor that can really bounce a lot of shots.
I'm also a bit concerned about infantry there, because if you take a look, not only he doesn't have amazing infantry number for both infantry deck and both for Vanguard, it's not even like highly vetted, and he brings 2 cards in Sea of Rifle Pias as Vanguard. I would move at least one of these cards to A.
Yes, okay. Now we haven't seen the other deck, but I would say like this is only a niche strategy if you know your opponent is already Vanguard and you try to just play, as we call it, Vanguard, where you play balanced deck but you use the Vanguard income just to compensate that your opponent is using Vanguard as well, because being Vanguard versus balanced as a balanced player is very difficult, and I think we saw that during our last time we streamed. That in all those games, I think the Vanguard managed to overwhelm the balanced player.
Also, if I can give tips to Freezer, if you ever watch this replay, what's the general rule of thumb for choosing infantry like transport vehicle? Because you chose the Lloyd Carrier for 0 points. Okay, so first thing you need to consider are points. And this is good because this is 0 points. And usually you don't want to pay more for infantry unless for specific reason, which I will cover in a second. Then you take a look on the most important speed other than cost, and this is speed. You see that, for example, your defense group is coming in 50-kilometer semi-armor track, where you can bring them in wheelies, so basically in jeeps 95 kilometers per hour, or even, I don't know, like CMPs or Bedfords. Actually, CMPs are faster, they are 80 kilometers per hour, and you still have enough in the deck to bring your units. Why it's really crucial in phase A? Because in phase A, usually what happens is bum rushing to the positions, and who takes the position, who gets entrenchment bonus first, who hides your infantry first, who doesn't get sniped in transport, and so on. And this is all matter of your speed, nothing else. Usually 10 millimeters of armor will almost never defend you from... I'm not even sure if this stops small caliber fire, if I will be honest. with you. Sometimes you want to pick more heavy and slower transport like half tracks, and then you use them like infantry support. Good examples for decks like this is, for example, third armored, where your infantry can bring a lot of half tracks and you use them as direct fire support because your deck kinda lacks infantry, yeah, and also you have enough Shermans to deal with half track killers, so enemy medium tanks and light tanks. So, few weird choices, but we'll see how it works for Freezer. Let's go to Crypto-Chris. Do you remember what Crypto-Chris is playing? Crypto-Chris is playing 44th. Damn, again, like matchup from 6 months ago or 1 year ago.
Yeah, indeed.
Season 3 of Steel Division, 44 against 15 Scots boys. So, talking about Crypto-Chris, he's also Vanguard. I really like that he brings double-vetted snipers in the fastest transport. So he's probably going to secure some important road openings. We see that, oh, he brings this cluster, HE cluster. To be honest, I only using it as cheap, slow, and not agile fighter. I never use the HE cluster with this bomber.
Yeah, pretty much what I feel it is that cluster is very, very bad bomb load. So what it is it's the recon IL2 without the recon for attacks, pretty much. That's how usually you use that one. And but looking at the whole deck again, I think we see a theme here. Both players are playing what we call the Vanguard style before, which is you have the Vanguard income, but it's a very deep deck anyway, with both players having C. But Crypto is significantly more heavy on the inf tab, because he's not just two Piat rifle squads, which one had vetted, he's two unvetted Guardia squads, which brings him, what is it, like 40 more infantry squads in total, so nothing to joke about. So if this is a grind game, Crypto certainly has the upper hand there, if he can deal with the Typhon.
Yeah, so few advices from me, because deck doesn't look bad at the first sight, at least. In my opinion, you should try to upvet your infantry, especially if you have already 118. You know that you are fighting against infantry heavy division, so any trade against rifles means that he doesn't bring more tanks, but he needs to refill his frontline with infantry, and when you have more upvetted units, you usually win. That's how this game works. Nothing else, to be honest, matters. We'll see how the T-34-85s will perform against Churchills. I don't really think that T-34 has that higher upper hand against the 17 pounder or even 6 pounder variant of Churchill.
I think that, yeah, like you said, looking at the deck, it certainly is like, it looks like a decent deck. Like there's no, like, as you say, like any big, it's more some smaller things that maybe can be optimized, but otherwise it looks like this is a player, you know, he knows what he's doing. He got, you know, the basics and of how building a deck works well. And when it comes to the T-34-85 fight, I think you agree. Like, I think T-34-85's biggest weakness is its slow rate of fire. One of Churchill's biggest strength is his high rate of fire. Even if the 85 has a bit more pen, I don't think that it's that I do think still that the Churchill is going to be quite good in that matchup, though, because of that high rate of fire.
All right. I'm a bit worried about AA tab for two reasons. First, you brought a lot of AA in terms that you brought 3 in A, 6 in B, and if you manage to bring all of them, like, good for you. But if you have so many of them, to be honest, I would upvet at least 1 vet them, so they are much more efficient, and you lose only 1 in phase A if you do that, and 2 in phase B. And all of your, like, you have 2 more slots for 1 point. I'm pretty sure you can cut something in the deck to bring 1 more, whatever AAPs you feel, even another Zenard or Zenard.
Yeah, like you said, what I would do is I would cut an infantry C-face Guardia squad out, and then use those points to add in 2 more AA cards, like one of the heavier AAPs, and then maybe what I would do is I would change. I would take 2 Senarts with 1 vet in A and 1 Senart with 1 vet in B. Then you still have a lot of AA. So maybe you don't need that. You could even go more aggressive with the vet, but I think that's standard. And I think, like, we're talking about vet, but I think still, like, the base is what I say. It's like when you're a new player, it's easier to just not vet too much at all and to play some games and see at the end of the game, oh, do I still have 50 infantry squads whenever I finish my game? Maybe I can vet them up some. So I still think it's a good start to not be too aggressive with veteran C4 players and more, trying the game, seeing how much infantry they end up with after the game, and then progressively up vetting their infantry to get closer to just have a few, dozen squads left at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more depending on your mode. Exactly.
I think that Crypto.Chris is a bit gambling because he knows that he goes against 15 Scots. We know that 15 Scots, if I remember correctly, can have like 5 or 6 cards of Typhoons. And they are all medium resilience, more than 500 speeds, fighter bombers. So especially when you're fighting medium resilience, 500 kilometers and more fighter bombers, veterancy on your 37mm is one of the most important stunts, because when you don't have veterancy, it usually happens that enemy bomber can dive in, drop the bomb, and you will suppress it maybe on the route back. When you have it at least on one vet, and he brings single plane, usually I think if the approach is next to AA, you can suppress it before it lands the bomb. So
yeah, exactly.
That's very, very important. Okay, so let's go into the game. Let me do my no spoiler scene. Okay, replace. Sino Muni. I would probably cut the B card of 1 to 2s for 85mm AA. Yeah, it could be the option too. All right. So, Freezer versus Crypto.Chris. I'm loading.
Yeah, I'm loading. I'm just give me a moment. I'll find the start of the game and we'll sync up there. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting fight. Like you said, 85 versus Churchill. I think I haven't seen much of them fighting it out in a good while. So it will be interesting to see how those matchups goes. If it is according to what we estimate, or
all right,
that's it, right? And we're playing in a map where actually that slow part of 15 Scott can hurt you quite a bit. Because I'm sorry, go ahead.
Especially on Orsha East, where we are going to play, because churches will take so long to arrive to crucial positions, like to the right or to the middle, that you are fighting at least 1 minute. We have early ping from the... Can you see this? What's there? I can see this, but I don't see what's there, man. I think that churches on this map are a bit too slow. Although when they reach actually the middle position, I think the T4, T4, 85s. Alerts.
Very good, but the downside is that, especially like we've talked about this fight, is that you often have a fight in the north, in the southern forest, right? So let's see here. So we'll start at 1050.
1050. Okay, I'll go quickly to 1050. And we go. I needed to turn off my alerts because I forgot to. Okay, I am at 1050. Are you going, Alet?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so guys, on the red side we have Harlem Fighter against AK Crypto.Chris on the red side, as 44th. On the blue side we have Garus von Karma, AK the Freezer, as 15 Scots. Looking at the deployment, we see that oh, Freezer is using Seize Order. If you take a
I
look at
think
the
that
map.
what we see here is that, so it's very important to take the South Forest, and that's what I want to say. That's where you really can suffer. Especially like you see here, I think we have a mistake that Assault Pioneers are in the Lloyd, like you said, that you really risk that you lose this forest before you even get to it. Lucky on this type, though, is that on red side, we see very little commitment into this forest, just two flamethrower squads and an OB and two T-34s. And the T-34s got the... It seems like all the tanks have the wrong command, so they're taking extra long to get to the front line, which is gonna be hit very hard, because usually when you play this map, you either... It's a niche strategy to give up the South Forest, which is a possibility, but often what it is, it's a very big, heavy fight in the Southern Forest, because once you get your opponent out of that forest, it's very hard for them to retake it. Hence, it's really strong to get that, take it, and just put up some AT guns, etc., to defend it. And yeah, there's not much on red side to stop this flow of blue coming in.
Yeah, in the meantime, Harlem Hellfighter lost 3 infantry squads on the other part of the map, so it secured early flag for 15 Scots. I need to say, and this is also part of the feedback, that Seize Order in 1v1 usually you can use, or in general you can use for memes, or in like Army General or something, because in any kind of competitive against human players, this is not optimal choice. Like if you used and give order manually, all of this unit will be probably in a bit better position than with Seize Order. That's at least my opinion. Because sometimes you can lose certain unit, like leader going to a very close front line and losing crucial units like leader for no reason when you could easily save them. But Piats and Blue Horde in the Southern Forest completely dominates. It means that probably Harlem Hellfighter is not going back there till the end of the game. And first air engagement from Typhoon against IL-2, and it goes in favor of 15 Scots.
Right. So the no spoiler is still hiding. You can hide the hide HUD, so it doesn't show, and then you can remove the no spoiler.
Oh man, thank you. It's there. It's there.
Right. So yeah. So I think that from both players, we see. Yeah, like they're both interesting. Blue now, 15 Scots taking total domination in the center, and I think that one big issue here is really that the move command of the tanks make them so slow that you've lost already the front when they arrive, which makes it harder for them to fight back. But one thing I do feel is that both players have a bit, in some areas, a bit odd. What would you say? Distribution of forces. I think that's something you need to learn with the map. So here, usually in this map, you have the main point is often like the middle, of course, and the southern forest. And then what you have other than that is the, of course, the north. And usually it's the middle and the southern forest that sees the most action at the beginning. So usually that's where you want to focus. Sometimes, of course, you can do the other ones. But I think that 15 Scots, they've spread out their forces very, very much. And usually when you play this game, you choose some areas that are less likely to be attacked to go very thin, just like a squad and an AT gun. If you really invest like a full, like an array of different units everywhere, usually that's not going to be very good, because the one point your opponent will be pushing, they will have still enough units to usually push through, but you will have units spread out, and those units elsewhere are usually not enough to push through what he has, even if he has less. So that's one thing I think we really saw with 15 now. Like, they managed really to seize the north here, because there wasn't much on the red side, but then again, there's not much to push up. And I think one other thing is that, like you said, like defense groups, they're not a frontline unit. There are ersatz truppen generally. How I would see them is that generally what I think their main use often is just to be hold the front line where you're not really gonna fight, to just get the cheapest possible unit away, and then you want to more use rifle squads because for that additional just 5 points, you get a lot for it. So I would certainly make sure that you try to re-evaluate the defense group more as a hold the line unit, while the actual rifle squads are the one that actually do the fighting for your infantry.
I'm pretty surprised that C's order like did so great job for the 15 Scots player. I'm pretty amazed. A bit sloppy micro and play from Harlem, I need to admit. So that was one mistake I can point out and give you tips. He dropped off map here. And let's say that even he killed 1 or 2 units, I'm not even sure. I think it was a bit off position. But when you want to drop off map, first you are desperately like you desperately need some time. You want to delay enemy offensive approach, whatever. Then when you drop off map. Second, you drop the off map when you want to exploit it. Dropping off map and not attacking in the area, most of the time it's the waste, because the biggest power of off maps other than like 380 is not killing power, but it's suppression power. And one of the best off map play you can do is you drop off map and you drive quick vehicles to surrender everything in the area.
Exactly. It's a bit difficult as you need to time it. As you see, just the off-map finishes. They usually have an infantry still in their infantry transport close by. And when you see it, you just tell the infantry squad just to move into where the off-map was, wherever your enemy units were hiding. And he's just going to drive it through the city, and you'll see a row of white flags. And that's usually one of the best ways to get the maximum value of your off-map. It's like you said here, he put the off map and he held like, what was it, like 3 defense squads and a leader squad, pinned them down for a few minutes. And so in the end, that's usually what you will do. And then I think that's quite a common is that if you're getting pushed through or your enemy comes in with a bomber, then you buy an off map when you get pushed through. Or they got a bomber, so then you buy AA. Usually, if your enemy comes in with a bomber and gets away, buying an AA at that moment might be like, it's a very reactionary and usually not that good, because now you're spending AA, but his bomber is going to load for a while. So unless you're placing this AA for a new bomber a fighter bomber that you're expecting soon, you're spending points now for something that won't do anything until much later. So you need to be think when you invest in AA, usually before the trouble happens, or when you see this is gonna be an area I need to defend. Just not, oh shit, he used a fighter bomber, I need to buy AA.
Yep. And especially that against fighter bombers with medium resilience and very fast speed, you need usually more than 1 AA, especially if this is not up-vetted, so that's not going to help. In the meantime, C's order galore from both of the players. I'm pretty amazed. But even C's order secured the area for 15 Scots, but you could see a bit earlier that C's order moved the leader to the front line, and it was killed by 2 snipers shooting around. If you do it manually, usually you don't lose your leader in that way. So that's why I recommend against using C's order, unless you are really overwhelmed. And to be honest, this game is not maneuver warfare. This game, they just send units to the front line, Q move or C's order in the terms. I would only use C's order if I'm really desperate with my micro awareness.
Exactly. Usually, yeah, I barely use nothing myself, but the hunt move is so good. Like you say, I think Q is the default key, and just like if you want to assault an area, instead of using C's order, what is common is just taking all your stuff and just Q ordering it up, using that hunt maneuver. So make sure that they will move up and attack whatever they find. And the key part here is that whenever they find an enemy, they will stop and start shooting. Because in this game, if you just do a move command, they will shooting while on the move. And while you're on the move with infantry, they take significantly more damage. So that's something you want to be careful about, because even if you have better or more infantry, if your infantry is moving while the enemy infantry is not, you're in a very big disadvantage.
Yeah. One more tips also for Harlem fighter and in general to people. If you have AA, You want to bring this in semi-open spot, or at least with some open ground in the front of the AAPs. Let's take a look at this one. You can see what is the line of sight for this AAPs in the middle, and this is in the middle of the forest. This is usually bad. What's the general rule of thumb you should use is you have your range of the unit divided by 5, and this is the smallest number of free space unit in front of AA for it to be effective. Also, you need to take care into consideration like forest and edge of the hills, because it also blocks line of sight even if you don't see it. Why? Because when fighter bombers do their approach, and here seats like AAPs, it will block the line of sight to diving or like low altitude planes.
Yeah, exactly. So, like you see, the AA will get because of the angle of the trees as well. Actually, plays even if you don't see it with the line of sight tool, the Z-axis actually plays into. So if you have it in the forest, the enemy plane is going to be able to get much closer to before your AA is even going to shoot, and that much closer is going to be crucial in that engagement. And I think one other thing is that he's very heavy in AA, and we also see some artillery now. And usually, when you're struggling on the front line, I usually don't recommend artillery. Artillery is usually when the game has bogged down, and you either then need to either kill AA, or the game has bogged down, and you need to deal some overtime damage. And I don't really think that this is the moment for howitzers.
Yeah. Like we had example of AA sitting in the middle of the forest and how effective fast fighter bombers are. He was able to bomb T-34 sitting here, like basically 300 meters from AAPs, and it wasn't even suppressed on the route back. It was like half suppressed or something, and it managed to dive in 300 meters from AA, drop the bombs, and go away. So usually place your AA, of course, if you can find safe spots, in the open with at least range divided by 5 of open space in the front line. And what's better, if you bring them in batteries, spreading one piece like over 2 kilometers and one piece 2 kilometers further against good player, what it will mean? Because you cannot really relocate your AA if it's not like self-propered, but enemy can bomb any position on the map. So if enemy just see that you have one piece here, one piece there, he'll bring concentration of planes, strafe, bomb your AA, whatever, and then AA on this side is gone and you already lack one piece of AA on your map, and enemy will bring the bombers 2 minutes later again.
Yeah, and I think that one thing I think I would suggest Harlem is that he's playing, I think, maybe a lot like the team play tactics. He's building a huge back line without much of a front line at all. If you look at the amount of front line units for red to blue, it's a very big discrepancy. And that's because on red side, you have over 500 points invested in AA pieces. And they're unvetted, so they're still just barely going to do the job of keeping off Tempests. But that's so much points that's not on the front line. So if Garrus won Karma would just push up, he would be able to find the AA and just kill it with his ground units. And that's why he has several mortars, howitzers, AA. What he needs right now is things on the front line to take back that to the 12-12.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Harlan, I think, a bit overwhelmed by the micro on the other side, losing his off-map dedicated to the bottom side to sniper. Pretty rough and costly mistake, especially that we already seen one off-map and it's depleted. So this is already one off-map card from Harlem gone. I think that he has only one piece left in his deck. And yeah, it's true that he invested in artillery, invested in mortars, he invested in AA. He even invested like in the off maps, true, but he didn't capitalize on them. He didn't follow up the barrage, so he didn't achieve anything with them at all.
Yeah, and I think that on the other side, one thing that Garrus needs to do is he needs to peek more. If you look at the center, he has a fleet of tanks and infantry, and there's 2 Guardia infantrymen, not squads but men, and a T-34-85 holding the front line. When you don't see, and especially now when you move up and you just see the enemy front line moving away, that means that there's probably nothing there. So instead of waiting for your opponent to actually build up their defenses and fighting them fairly, you should just move up your stuff and strike his vulnerable backline stuff that usually now would be vulnerable and out of sight, out in the sight, like you can see here, there's Senart. So would be.
Yeah, I think that Harlem, aka Crypto Chris, is clearly newer player. He lost a lot of units in transport. He leaves not deployed unit for several minutes on different part of the front line. We see that he's more focused on support equipment. You could consider it combined arms, but to be honest, to use combined arms, first you need frontline presence. And frontline presence is completely lacking and gone for Harlem Fighter. I don't really see how he comes back to the game. Okay, he has mortars, he has AA, but AA is in bad position and it's so spread thin that Garus with his 5 planes, he can just kill any of the single AA pieces because they are so separate. Maybe not in the middle, especially if this one gets unloaded and they get upvetted somehow, maybe moving out of the forest.
And the last off-map card just died the same way as the last one in the south. So you really want to be careful with those things, and you don't want to bring them up wherever your opponent can get vision, because the off-map doesn't need vision itself; it just uses its own circle. And it's like you said, I think that this is like, it's great to start playing team games where it's less pressure and you can learn. One thing that is important to learn then going to 1v1 from team games is that, like you said, like combined arms is a huge amount of infantry and tank/armored card support with a hint of maybe a mortar or some like support in the side. When you have more AA artillery stuff, then you have actual like infantry and tanks, you're very, very back heavy, and in 1v1 that won't work at all, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I think that this is maybe some kind of mistake, because when we could see the Harlem Hellfighter deck, he had a lot of infantry. So probably he copied the deck from someone but didn't adapt the playstyle. Why you need infantry in the front line? And you need it early, because you could see that Harlem lost 280 guns, 1 AA piece on the front line because he had no infantry. Infantry is needed for holding the front line, eating the bullets, body spotting basically, blocking enemy infantry from movement, because if enemy moves infantry around where your infantry is firing at him, he will be quickly suppressed and dead basically. Also you need them for spotting. Not only AA and 280 guns, that in the other part of the map we can see T-34-85 dying to rifle payats because there was no infantry screening at all. So infantry doesn't in current patch win the game by itself, but it's crucial for you to not lose the game, not lose the front line.
I think one thing though that Harlem Fighter is doing good, like I said before, is that you really want to focus wherever you bring stuffing, and that's at least what he's doing. We see here a big infantry train coming in the middle, which is what he needs. And I think that's something good that he should keep up with, is that when you send in those reinforcements, make sure that instead of sending in them piecemeal all over the front line, to really focus your force in one point. And now we see Garrus actually moving his tanks forward. So that's it's a bit late, but it's good that he's now realized that these tanks needs to be further up. If they actually would have been at the ridge, he would be able to slade, probably kill all of those infantry in their transport. And there's not really anything that holding his Sherman back at the moment. And when he has such a huge amount of them, he shouldn't be too afraid to just roll them up. And okay, even if there's like a huge defense on the other side, you losing a Sherman and then rolling back isn't that big of a loss. While here you're really missing the opportunity of taking, like, he could take like 4 more flags in the center if he would have just moved up those Sherman, those Churchills a bit earlier.
Yeah. I think that it's slowly getting completely out of hand for Harlem. He's like 15 Scots have complete superiority in the air, so right now for infantry blobs is a bit too late. Enemy has armor advantage, AA advantage, I mean AA, air superiority, defensive position, and now infantry alone won't do. Why? Because it will get instantly suppressed by tanks or whatever else brings the HE damage. Also, I think that he has good idea about using combined arms, but how you do it properly. First, you secure your front line, or you stabilize it at least. Try to know what's there or predict what could be there. Sometimes even single Ersatztruppen for 15 points is the best possible recon, because you move it, it gets shotted, you lose like 3 men, you fall it back, and you know that something is sitting there, that this flank is not open completely. He used mortars, he spent all the possible shells, and did nothing in the meantime. He just fired. Then he used off-map. Off-map dropped. There was no follow-up. He moved the tanks. Infantry was moving in the back, but infantry is slower. He wasn't like timing the approach of tank and infantry around. So the tank died, and now his infantry is alone trying to get flags. Okay, he's able to get the flag for a second, but soon Typhoon will come and the flag will be again in the blue hands.
Yeah. Exactly, especially with those. Even if he brought in so many AA, they were, as you said, too spread out, not vetted, and were in a position where they couldn't really fire efficiently. But I think that if you just, that's what he needs to do. So, like some of those better positioning, but then also, you know, like we said, like if you more realign the distribution of your combined forces, I think there's still a lot of things here that I think Harlem could do. That who would quickly show a lot of improvements.
Yeah. One small tip, especially in team games, but I think in 1v1, it doesn't take much time. Don't deploy never ever your artillery on your spawn road. Never. Why? Because enemy clicks counter battery or manually targets your artillery, and then everything which is coming via this road usually is suppressed, unloaded, and it ends like you lose like 80 points in infantry squads, because they will travel for 10 minutes from the spawn to the front line, and it's already disadvantage in this area.
The game is about to end. I think I need to take a quick toilet break, so if you can just wrap it up, I'll be right back.
No worries. So I wouldn't say flawless gameplay from 15 Scots from Garus von Karma, but he showed that he's clearly more experienced or better player. He did much less mistakes. I'm pretty amazed that Cis Order worked for him few times, but also I think that Harlem didn't really have idea what to do. So for the next time, when you don't know what to do, you bring infantry through the front line, especially where you have so many buildings and forest lines. You can hide. You bring support equipment like AT gun, tanks, and you try to concentrate your AA, especially against decks like 15 Scots, 6 Airborne, or 20 Viega, basically fast fighter bomber, medium resilience decks. Because otherwise, you could see it, enemy will bring overwhelming air force, and your single AA won't stop it. Your single AA wasn't stopping Typhoon bombing target 300 meters from AA, because it was unvetted, it was in the forest, but still, if he had two, your AA will be directly bombed, and it's not that hard to micro or achieve whatsoever. Hello, Frublord. Thank you for having you here. We are casting Greenhorn tournament with Valod. Sorry, I turn off the alerts because my alert is a bit long, and having constant clown song in the background, it will be bad. But yeah, it was good game, and still Harlem the Hellfighter. We see that you are new player, but you sign up, you show to the game, you played the game, you didn't surrender, bro. Like, that's the spirit we need in the game. If you don't try, if you don't fail, you will never succeed, right? So good amount of good games in front of you. Hello, Rooster. Losing in the opener makes countering R more difficult. To be honest, I think that opener is really important for the game, but it doesn't really correspond to the R in the beginning. Why? Because let's say, I don't know, you lost 2 ognomecznikis to PTRS because you had sloppy micro, okay? It happens. It happens to me like every time I play on the stream, 1v1, every time, every single day. And okay, so you lost 2 ognomecznikis, and enemy brings, I don't know, 70 point sztuka, and he bombs what? Let's say he bombs your T-34. Even if he is lucky and he kills it, he still is 40 points back because he killed 35 point unit with 70 point plane. He needs at least 2 sorties or more valuable target to kill for it to be efficient. All right, it's a bit worse with units like Typhoon, like Tempest, like Focket Wolves, certain variants, because stopping this is not easy task, and killing is even worse to do. But what if he bombs your AT gun? I mean, if your whole defense in the area is single AT gun, it means that you should push on the side where you actually invested points, or you are floating points, or I don't know what you do. But sometimes, like, losing 1 AT gun, in my opinion, it's not losing you the game. What can lose you the game is being constantly bombed. Any single AT gun appears on your side and is bombed by enemy Tempests, and you lost 10 AT guns this way. Yeah, that completely can lose you the game.